Well, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me all? If I get some thumbs, if you can hear me, yes, fantastic. Look, I've never had so much positiveness coming back at me. Good afternoon. My name is Graeme Miller. I'm the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of Surrey, Executive Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. I am a former head of the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management, as well as being an alumni of the school as well. So qualified at least to do the introduction to today's first online alumni event. Normally when you have to listen to me doing these introductions, the pain of that is softened by you having a glass of champagne in your hands. Alas, we've not been able to organise that for today, but please, if you feel the need to go and get a glass of champagne, it is Friday afternoon now, so I think it's probably okay. We are recording this, so just for your information, we're going to record the presentations. We won't be recording the breakout rooms or anything that comes subsequently, but we've got a fantastic panel of speakers this afternoon, and I'm very pleased and very grateful to have them speaking. And so we're keen to record those so that we can promote this afterwards. I'm just going to offer a few words by way of introduction. It's obviously been an incredibly turbulent year for the university, as it has been for everybody in all aspects of life, professional and personal. The transformation at the university has been near total, really, where we've gone from a campus that did everything largely face-to-face, and in very short order had to go to a campus where we did everything remotely. Progress that we'd been making for years on trying to increase the amount of recorded content and digital content for our classes, for our students, happened within a matter of weeks as we took all of our programs online. Interesting bits of learning through this, in that prior to the outbreak of COVID, staff were always very resistant about putting material online, believing that the face-to-face lecture was king, and that was the way that we were taught, and that's the way that we should teach. And students were very much pressing us for they wanted more online content. What we've seen through this period is, I think, that staff actually really appreciate being able to record their lectures at a time that's convenient to them. And if they say something that they shouldn't say, then re-record a little bit and then put it back up online, and give staff an awful lot more flexibility. I think it helps different kinds of staff as well. Staff that perhaps don't enjoy the stage, don't project their voices quite so much. And interestingly, we've had from students now hankering for more face-to-face content, that all this online stuff is not quite what it was all cracked up to be, and that they really miss the face-to-face content. So we've had a bit of a reversal of positions, I think, which has been, say, part of the learning through this process. The transformation to the university has been incredible, having to everything socially distanced and how we could teach in a safe way. We've been very fortunate to have very few serious incidents of COVID on campus. We've had pretty good compliance. I think if you try to remember being 18-year-olds and locked up in imagine what being locked up in a space would be like. So we've had a few parties break out. But by and large, there's been pretty good compliance from the students, and as a consequence, the campus has been a very safe place to be. We've obviously got huge amounts of uncertainty as to what's going to happen next, or from September. We hope that we can get our students back for more face-to-face teaching, but there's almost certainly going to still be some form of social distancing required, which means that, for example, our big lecture theatre, our 400-seater lecture theatre, has a maximum capacity of 50 at the moment with social distancing. So this really transforms the way that we need to teach. It's having a big impact on the employability or the employment abilities of our students. Getting placements has become incredibly difficult in the industry. Getting placements is a key way that students get jobs at the end of graduation, and then of course those are coming under pressure as well. So we're incredibly grateful to alumni who have donated to the university through this period, donated through our hardship fund to help students overcome some of their debts and the difficulty of moving backwards and forwards between home and university. And we also launched an Opening Doors volunteering campaign, which alumni are able to sign up to give their time to help mentor students, career advice, and indeed any employment opportunities that they're aware of or have available. So I'm incredibly grateful for alumni that have done that. And if you haven't had a chance to do that, then we'd be very appreciative if you can. I'm going to hand over to our head of school, Professor Is Tusiadia, who's going to take you through the rest of the session today. As I say, I'm really pleased with the speakers that we have lined up. It's fantastic to have such an impressive array of speakers, and I look forward to listening to the discussion, and hopefully later in the year we can all meet up with a glass of champagne, which would be very nice. But with that, I will hand over to you, Is.
Thank you, Graeme, for welcoming all the attendees today. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the updates in the school. And I promise you, I'm going to take 5 minutes. And so I try to discipline myself by creating some slides. So I'm going to share my screen now. Otherwise, yeah, so hopefully you will be able to see this. Right. So a few things, what's new in the school, and I'm going to share the first new things that we have. We're going to launch a new program in September, the coming semester, and that is the MSc in International Hospitality Management with Digital Innovation. So this is a new master's program that we introduce as a fully online, so it's a 100% online program. And with the specialization of digital innovation, basically leveraging the capabilities that we have in the school. So we have started taking applications, and hopefully this will run smoothly in the next academic year. In terms of research, we do have 3 research centers in the school, and that is the Center for Competitiveness in the Visitor Economy, the Center for Digital Transformation in the Visitor Economy, and the Center for Sustainability and Well-being in the Visitor Economy. Now, within the third center as well, we now have a new research observatory, and it's called HARM. So it's Observatory for Human Rights and Major Events. Now, the issues that the new observatory will tackle will be discussed today by our second speaker, who is Sarah De Carvalho. So we're excited that we're actually now looking into new types of research topics that are tied to events management as well as human rights issues. And next, what's new in terms of industry engagement initiatives, we are launching, we launched this semester, the School of the SHTM Executive in Residence. And the 2 executives in residence are our speakers for today's webinar. So the idea is we would like, with this program or with this initiative, to have a more meaningful engagement of our industry partners with SHTM, with all members of SHTM. So that includes students, staff, leadership team, and also in terms of research as well. So Abigail and Sarah have been engaging with our students. They have given talks in different modules with different students, so at level 4 and level 6, I believe. And today they are going to be speaking with all of you about the various areas that they are experts in. And then last thing that I would like to talk about is the scholarship that we have received from the Savoy Educational Trust. So through the generosity of the Savoy Educational Trust and the trustees, we've welcomed 2 scholars, 2 Savoy Educational Trust scholars, studying Strategic Hotel Management, MSc, starting in February. And we will also welcome 2 more scholars in September 2021. So that also in Strategic Hotel Management program. So with that, I would like to invite Julia and Margaret from Savoy, from the Trust, to share probably a few words about the Trust and about the scholarship and about the motivations perhaps behind their generosity in giving the scholarship to our students.
Hello.
Thank you very much, Lise. And Margaret will start off by talking about the Trust.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just a very quick overview on the Savoy Educational Trust. We were established in 1961, so we are 60 years of age in May of this year. And over the years, our remit is to help with projects that add value and enhance and progress hospitality education. And we do this with a variety of projects in schools, further education, higher education, and charitable organisations. It's a wide variety of projects that we support. Further details you can get from our website and our annual reports. One of our projects recently is the Master Scholarship with Surrey University, and I'm now going to pass on to Julia so she can explain a bit more of the thinking behind that initiative.
Thank you very much, Margaret, and good afternoon, everybody. Yes, the trustees were very pleased to announce the grant to the University of Surrey for these 4 scholarships, because having scholarships at this level, we appreciate, will ensure the university can attract students who are academically excellent, but may be constrained by financial means to pursue academic learning. And especially in view of the current situation, trustees understand and appreciate that an investment in higher education is essential for the development of a highly skilled and productive workforce that we know the hospitality industry is really going to need going forward. And one point that really stood out in the application and what we really liked was the statement that the primary objective of this initiative is to retain the leadership talent in the industry. Because we all understand and realise that the graduating class of 2020 faced such a hugely different employment landscape to any of their predecessors, a really tough time for them all. And these students over the past 4 years have developed such knowledge, skills and experience, we need to really protect the investment in those skills. So we hope and we believe that these scholarships will really help to identify, support and develop the next generation of industry leaders and contribute to raising the profile of hospitality education and the industry itself. And from our point of view, we're very encouraged also that the university told us that anecdotally, students who graduated from a master's programme in hospitality are more likely to remain in the industry. So a win-win. And Margaret and I were delighted recently to virtually, of course, meet the first 2 recipients, Jess and Hannah, very impressive, bright students. So a really exciting partnership from our point of view that we look forward to continue with Surrey with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia and Margaret. We're very thankful for the generosity of the trustees and the trust, and hopefully we will be able to arrange more engagement between the scholars and the trustees, and also there will be more of this in the future. So I will now pass the floor to Lorna, who will moderate the first session with our first speaker. So Lorna.
Thank you, Ease. colleagues and students, alumni members, very good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity given to me to take this privilege to introduce our very first guest speaker, that is Abigail Tan, who is the CEO of St. Giles Hotel Group for UK, Europe and North America. Well, Abigail is not the average CEO, that hotel CEO you and I will see, hardworking, stay in the office for 12 hours. She's so young and energetic, a real inspiration for the new generation of hotel leaders. So because apart from being born into a renowned hospitality family and have deep roots in the passion for the industry, in her spare time, you may find her flying helicopters and boxing at 6 p.m. or doing some sorts of sports, riding a motorbike, or indeed most likely eating. So it's very comforting for us to know that we share some common enjoyment with the hotel CEOs. Now, but there's a serious point on that. Her youth, energy and adventurous nature are what drive the uniqueness of the St. Giles brand and the company culture, as she believes the passion and excitement has to live in everything that we do, especially work. Passion has to be nurtured, as she says, and hospitality needs to be a way of life and not simply a job, which we all concur. Yeah. And she put it, passion for people and for her team are her passion. So Abigail, apart from her business side, she's like many of us during the university, during the student days, she would spend her summer breaks as an apprentice in her family business in the hotels. And then later on, she formally joined the family business in 2009 as the director of corporate affairs and strategic investment. So that's more than a decade ago, which gives her the unique insight from a multiple perspective to look at the hotel business, operator, the owner, the investor, or asset management. Okay, but apart from that, it's not just about the business side of her, which is really intriguing, and she's also actively engaged looking into the social impact as the industry which we can offer. So, for instance, she is nurtured these, some colleagues might know, an initiative called Hotels with a Heart, which is not just a usual CSR program on the side. It lies at the core of the brand, which offers some fundraising efforts that the staff personally get involved to help the needed. Okay, then Abigail also serves on the international committees, most notably the Women in the Hotels. So from her overall profile, we're very privileged to get to know her, not just as a hotel CEO, but as a person with a kind heart, would like to do good looking to the society. So without a further delay, I'd like to pass over to Abigail to deliver a very timely topic, what it takes to revive the hospitality industry.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I'm very humbled and a little embarrassed. I think I'm blushing a little bit of your introduction. These days, I tend to be doing more of the eating than any of those other activities that I normally like to do. But good afternoon, everybody. As Dr. Wang mentioned, my name is Abigail Tan, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the St. Giles Hotels here in the UK, Europe, and America. And it is a real pleasure and an honor for me to be here this afternoon, and also an honor to have been asked to share some of my outlook on what it takes to revive the hospitality industry and what our path to recovery looks like. So if you just be patient with me for 2 seconds for me to share my screen. Okay, I believe everyone can see that. So firstly, just a brief introduction to our hotels. There are currently 8 St. Giles hotels existing on 4 continents in 6 major cities: London, New York, Sydney, Manila, Kuala Lumpur, and Penang, totaling close to 3,500 keys, with over 1,000 alone being here in London, 720 our central London property, and 408 our St. Giles Heathrow. All our hotels are owned and operated by us, our own private group, and our strategy is and has been to continue to grow in the world's major cities, hubs, and also upcoming second cities, always being strategically and centrally located, hence our tagline, Be Central. We also own and manage a sister brand called CityTel Hotels. These are situated in Southeast Asia, and with these hotels, our total room count is just over 5,000 keys worldwide. So, speaking about revival and recovery of the hospitality industry, we first started to get wind of this new virus in December of 2019. When at the time we thought it would be like the H1N1 or swine flu of previous years, something that would get contained and controlled quite swiftly without the masses needing to change much of their habits. And I think safe to say by now, all of us have changed many of our habits. Little did we ever foresee what the world would look like 3 months down the road, with most of the world in some form of lockdown and international travel grinding to a complete halt. And for me, who has spent an average of about 200,000 miles every year in the air for the past 11 years, pre-2020, this was definitely something quite inconceivable. So this graph shows you what our annual occupancy rates in our London hotels look like pre-COVID, and what dramatically ensued in 2020 and 2021 to follow. As you can see, our central London property went from doing a 96% occupancy in 2019 down to 22% in 2020 and 12% so far in 2021. St. Giles Heathrow went from a 76% occupancy to 15 in 2020 and a wonderful 3% so far in 2021. And you know, these occupancies from 2018, 2019, these were typical of what our hotels would normally do on a yearly basis. But I think where you'll see the more drastic look is at the months from December to March. Is where you really see the drastic drop in occupancy from February of 94% to 34%, moving into our lockdown phase, and then we were obviously closed until August. Reopened briefly until November. Briefly in December, and we've been shut ever since, partially open in both properties. So what are we doing at the St. Giles to revive and recover? We've had this time now to reset our thinking, understand what needs to happen, listen to the consumer, and do everything we can to survive the next 2 years and move into thriving in the years to follow, as well as make our employee, our St. Giles family well-being and mental health well-being a priority for now, for the next 12 to 24 months and into the future, because mental health is not something that exists now only, it's forever. So a few things that we've done. Widening our net was a way of finding new demographics of traveler that we could attract, because first and foremost, we generate revenue. So for example, we introduced a pet package and are now a pet-friendly hotel. So you can bring up, no horses, we've had rabbits, up to 2 animals below 25 pounds. And this is, for example, understanding the rise in domestic travel and regional travel that is happening, and also that people like the option of traveling with their furry family members. We have new SOPs and policies in place to guarantee the hotel facility is a safe place to stay. And this includes the use of UV light machines in rooms, because it's also of utmost importance to keep our staff safe. The UV light machine gets put into the room once the guest leaves, sanitizes the room, then the housekeeper goes in, cleans, sanitizes, puts the UV light on again, removes it, and then the room is sealed with a sticker, and the seal is only to be broken by the next guest when entering the room for the first time. So being closed for the majority of 2020 and until May 2021 this year, along with a forecast of low occupancies and rates, means that financially cash reserves are being depleted with every day that passes. what we have done this year so far to maintain a form of cash flow, but also to continue our work for Hotels of Heart and community giving, is working with Westminster Council to house rough sleepers and homeless, and the homeless. We've been in partnership with them since January, and we will be possibly, if they would like, even past our reopening. It's important work, as Lauren mentioned, the Hotels of Heart, that we continue to be a soul and a people in the community and not just a business. We have also been on cost-cutting exercise to eliminate unnecessary contracts, renegotiate terms, and find where more efficiencies in our operational systems can be made. So as we move to revive and recover, we are re-engaging all of our channels, all of our booking channels, including direct booking through our website. We are investing currently in our website redesign to strengthen our direct conversion rate, as bookings made directly in a steady market cost much less than via OTAs like booking.com. We're also working on developing our guest loyalty program in partnership with the University of Surrey. We have had very long loyal hotel guests throughout our group. And while we have rewarded them at the hotel level, we're taking the next step to have a group-wide program to strengthen our group loyalty and revenue. And as the industry recovers, this data from the program will be very vital, as it allows us to deepen our personalization service and our communication. A loyal guest is always more engaged than a new guest, and the acquisition cost of course, is much less. Also, with the UK vaccination success track higher than Europe, it is predicted actually that London will attract more international travelers within the next 12 months than those previously other favorite cities like Paris. This, of course, will help our business. Also, the approval of Biden's plan in the US, with mass vaccinations happening there, will also help our hotels in New York, plus the ones here. So our next 12 to 24 months will be one of continued austerity, making it a priority to continue to deliver on a level of customer service and customer care that will exceed expectations, and if anything, to better our game and to ensure that everyone who walks through the door has a fulfilling experience. All the teams continuing to work together to get us back to where we used to be, and then build back even better and stronger, is what we are working on. As well as I mentioned, continuing to support our staff whose mental health has suffered as a result of COVID, because our external recovery is just as important to us as our internal recovery. Majority of our staff now, come the end of this month, will have been on furlough for more than, well, a year. And that, coupled with the loss of certainty, the anxiety that comes with that, the uncertainty of whether there is a job to come back to and how much of that has surely played a part on all of us. And we have actually in 2019, we launched an initiative called #IamWell, which was our internal initiative to try and eliminate the stigma of poor mental health, where we say, it's okay to say I'm not well. It's okay to say I'm anxious, depressed, and not that it's only okay for people, for some to think it's okay to say I have the flu and that's fine. But we want to create a supportive, empowering, emotionally safe environment that our staff can also come back to and rely on for the coming months ahead. So, what does the wider industry need to recover? My opinion is that in the short to medium term, subsidies need to be in place to make it more attractive for the domestic traveler to come into London, whether it is in form of for example, reduced train fares, a fuel claim back scheme, or subsidizing part of a hotel stay. In my opinion, something like this works because it stimulates spending, and at the same time, businesses get the much needed cash flow from which we can continue to hire, invest, and buy. So it's a nice, to me, by my works as a nice cycle. The return of the business traveler is crucial to our industry, and we need to make it more attractive for this sector to return to the office and to travel for work. Whether this is through, again, government-backed discounted office rental, or commercial landlords making their lease structures more flexible and more adaptable to what the new corporate will need. Of course, the opening of international travel and borders and regaining of confidence to travel is key, and will give customers the certainty and confidence to book holidays. Last year it was almost impossible to book anything because you don't know whether you're going to go into lockdown and borders will close from one week to the next or one day to the next. So, and last but not least, the recovery of the middle income households, especially those who have been on furlough for the majority of the year, who've been made redundant. This will be a key indicator for our recovery and for the recovery of the industry, especially in our market, our 3 to 4 star category market. Oops, didn't switch. So what does the future look like for us? We anticipate that 2021 will remain in the 30% occupancy mark through the rest of the year. And that starting from second quarter of 2022 is when we will experience a pickup in occupancy to 50%, finishing the year to hopefully around the 70% mark. This is an optimist opinion, and I hope that we would be able to finish the year above 30%. Is all to see depending on the status of vaccination and international travel. My jobs forecast for the hospitality industry is that sadly in 2021 hiring will be minimal as companies try to build up cash reserves and performance numbers again, as well as understand the new lay of the land following such a long closure before making any decisions on team hiring requirements. But what I would say though is that we will be looking at creative ways in which we can hire back and create new positions and roles that would enable us to enhance guest satisfaction and improve the quality of care for both our guests and our staff. Looking after the mental well-being of our staff, like I said, is important. And continuing our I Am Well program, we have a few mental health first aiders trained, including myself, at the hotel on hand to try and create and sustain a healthy team that will be able to sustain a healthy business moving forward. So thank you for your time today. It's been a true honor, and I'm not sure if I've run out of time or I'm on time.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Thank you very much, Abigail, for your insightful information. And we have about 15 minutes for question and discussion. And I know we have many colleagues joining us worldwide, as well as alumni members, current and former students. So please do feel free to ask a question, or you could post your question in the chat box, which I will read out very shortly.
Hello, everybody. I'm Barbara Dexter Smith, calling. I'm actually, it's 7 in the morning here. I'm in North Carolina. So I just think it's an interesting perspective. My husband and I met at Surrey, and that was 45 years ago. We graduated in 75. And so, Surrey looks very, very different these days. I'm still in hospitality. I teach online classes in tourism for a community college here. But one of my comments is that I think with these wealth of people here, with all their experience, it would be really good to have a forum to get some information, because one of the first things I noticed on the slide was business travel. I think business travel is going to look very, very, very different. I think a lot of businesses are not going to go back to their offices. They're going to be much more online. And I don't think we're going to see the support from the business travelers for hotels and other tourism enterprises. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara. How wonderful. I think, first of all, I would very welcome to this event, and also we'd like to send our best regards to you and to your husband. What a story. Please do get in touch. I'm sure the school would love to feature you and your husband's story in one of our monthly digest. Hope Ease will agree with me. Wonderful, thank you. Colleagues, any other comments or questions? All welcome.
Hi, this is Mark Soman. I'm calling from New York, actually, also 7:40 in the morning, so I've got my cup of coffee. Abigail, I think the social impact part of your brand is inspiring. Do you feel that the industry is moving in that direction in terms of more hospitality companies focusing on social impact?
That's a great question, Mark. Thank you. Nice to see you again. I hope you're well in New York. You know, I believe it's 5 years ago. For me, there wasn't much emphasis on social impact and well-being that was made core and central to what a hotel's soul was. And that was the reason for developing Hotels of Heart. That was something that lived in everything that we do and that the staff believed in. And I believe moving forward, you know, now that we've had so much emphasis publicly on mental health in the past 2 years, on doing good for society, on the homelessness issue that's been on the rise in most major cities, especially New York and here in London, that hospitality will continue to step up to help. Because one thing that I believe in is that at hotels we have so much resource to be able to help. So why not? We're able to train people, to teach so many different aspects of the industry, from housekeeping and plumbing and to human resources, and why not? And so internally at the St. Giles, we've been putting together a group of trainers, of internal staff trainers who will be able to take on apprentices and do training like this. So I'm hopeful that the wider industry will continue to do this work, because I think the future of hospitality and the future leaders, as well as young adults from underprivileged backgrounds will need this support and training moving forward. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. I have a question from Barry Needle. The question is, what physical or structural changes are envisaged to make hotels safer as we move out of lockdown?
So physical changes that we have made are, I think, as you've seen in most stores and supermarkets, screens. They don't look great and they don't function, but they're necessary. We have hand sanitizing stations at every corner. You can't escape one. We have sufficient PPE on site for staff and for guests if they need. In terms of structural changes, that's a good question and a bit of a difficult one, only because it will require a lot of capital expenditure, which I don't think any hotel can afford at the moment. So to me, it's a matter of controlling internally what we do and how we keep safe distancing in place. Also, because I don't feel that in 2 years' time we'll still be living in the same way we are now, with the social distancing and with the masks all the time and the need to have the screens. So I wouldn't envisage that we would need to make any key major changes.
Thank you, Abigail and Devon. Thank you. Any other questions? Actually, Abigail, on that point about what as an industry we could do to make it physically offering some kind of assurance to our customers that you are safe to return, like UK Hospitality, which is the body used to provide these general guidelines on COVID-proof, but different brands, IHG, Accor, as part of the brand standards, also issues a wide range of guidelines. So what's your take, to what extent one should learn from each other to share and then provide a common guideline which can be introduced across different industry sector?
Yeah.
What view on that?
I agree. I think we don't want to confuse the public as to what the general rules are, and hopefully I think by now most of us understand what the normality that we now have is. but I mean, even for us, we have about a long one-page document on our COVID guidelines. And this is what we it's on our website, is what we would distribute to our guests, and something that they can see clearly. But I agree, actually, it would be useful to have one blanket guideline that's maybe a couple bullet points that makes it easy for any potential guest to read, but also I think for our minds to just have some more clarity on the rules that are required.
Thank you. Yes. So we have had questions from across the Atlantic, colleagues, alumni members from other parts of the world. Well,
if I may, I have a question, if I may.
Of course, yes.
So there was lots of discussion about perhaps changes in tourist behavior in terms of where they would like to stay when they are traveling again post-COVID, and there has been also a lot of discussions around short-term rentals, for example, as opposed to hotels, are now getting a little bit more popular because of the, I think, safety issues and also the types of vacations that people take after COVID. I'm just curious about your view on this and how that would affect, I guess, hotels in general.
Yeah, good question. I think the idea or the impact of short-term rentals like Airbnb, for example, they've been around for a while. What I still continue to believe in hotels and the value of staying in hotels is that the service, the security, and just the certainty of being able to get help where you need it. I think it's sometimes, depending on what you're looking for, is a very different traveler. That being said, though, we are looking at the potential of knowing that people want more flexible space where, as Barbara mentioned, some things where you can live and work and you don't have to go to an office, but you still want the flexibility of a working space, that potentially we create a co-living and co-working space within our hotel, and also make the rooms more amenable, whatever the word is, to shorter term, like say stays of more than a week. So yeah, I think it's important that we continue to listen to what the customer wants, and on top of their safety, that we can cater to a wider range of demographic. Because at the St. Giles London, we have 700 over rooms. It's a big property. It would be good to change. Even at our Heathrow property, we have a new wing of 108 rooms that we built 3 years ago. So it's, I think being able to change our spaces in the next couple of years, once we see what the market is like, will be interesting, will be important. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Of course. Please, Margaret.
Yes. On the recruitment going forward as the industry opens up, do you think there will still be a shortage of skills in the industry? Prior to COVID, there was a big worry, particularly with Brexit, that there would be a shortage of skills and recruitment people going into the industry. Do you still envisage that will be a problem as the industry opens up?
I don't foresee a shortage of skills. Also because for line positions, for example, like receptionists or even receptionists and housekeeping, these are skills that can be quite easily taught. And the majority of these jobs are the ones that are being made redundant right now, from what I'm seeing, because of a low occupancy. That these are always the first jobs to go because you don't need so many people on the front line anymore. So to me, these are the ones that we can train them. Most of our staff who come to us are blank. What do you call them? they're blank canvases. So we have to train everybody, and that's what we enjoy doing anyway. In more senior manager roles, I also don't believe that there'll be a shortage, because from what I've seen within the industry, there's been a lot of movement, there's been a lot of redundancies, a lot of change in structures of companies. So I think there's a lot of good talent out there. just hopefully the good talent can be hired and be kept motivated.
Thank you, Margaret and Abigail.
Lorna, is it okay if I ask a question?
Please go ahead, Emma.
Hi everyone, my name is Emma. I'm a teaching fellow in hospitality here in Surrey. Abigail, I'm really interested to ask you about the mental health first aid training that you mentioned, because before I left industry to come to Surrey, I did the training with the HR team in the hotel I was working for. And I suppose one of the things that really challenged us was I don't know how long your training was, but our training was 3 days, but it doesn't necessarily equip you to be a counsellor. It's just obviously making you more aware of mental health issues that your staff may experience. But one thing I'm very curious is, like, where do you see it fitting, I suppose, in your company, and I suppose maybe within, your properties within the team? Because one thing we were kind of thinking, maybe how do we operationalize it, if that makes sense? You know, is it a HR responsibility, or should mental health be everybody's responsibility within the hotel? So just
that's a great question, and something that we thought about as well once we started doing the mental health first aider training. So, because it should be everyone's responsibility to look out for each other. We are all, I said the other day, like family members. We spend so much time with each other. So what we did at St. Giles was, you'll have an operations meeting every morning with a sheet of what's happening. On that sheet, we'll also have who's your mental health first aider today, and there'll be 2 shifts, and there are 5 of us. And so then we take it in different shifts. So all staff, and this is circulated to all staff, and they know who they can call upon that day, and who's responsible. So to me, it just made it much more visible and front facing. And I agree. After the training, it was so eye-opening. Like, I would recommend it to anybody, because it just sheds so much more light on what, for example, someone with depression is going through. That I thought I knew what it was until doing that course, and it was 2 days, and you're like, it's so much more than what I had imagined, and it just made me more compassionate about it. And so I think that it's a job for all members of staff to be able to identify and say, are you not feeling well? Go speak with your mental health first aider. And it's our job not to counsel, to listen, and then to encourage them to seek help further forward. But actually, you bring up a great point, because sometimes I think we do this training and then we forget about it on the back end. We talk about it. So it's how you're making me think about how even more we can push it on a daily basis, especially when we get back to work. Well, get back to the hotel in May. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. I hope that answers the question, Emma. Thank you, Abigail. We have another question coming in from Danny. First of all, thank you very much for the presentation. I am doing my study on new normal. Some think that the working situation will be tougher in the industry after the pandemic. What is your opinion on any change which will happen in the working environment of the hospitality industry?
I think that, as I say, in hospitality, we kind of are chameleons. But when things were good for us, at St. Giles, when things are good, we were on like a hiring mode. So you have, say, for one role, 3 people who can do it. And now I believe it's not about a tougher working environment, but how we can go back to being those chameleons, be multi-skilled, multifaceted, continue to do more training, as well as like the importance is making sure that no one is overworked. Otherwise, we hire for us not to put so much pressure on one person when they don't have the skills or support that they need in order to survive. Otherwise, then it goes back to it being an unhealthy internal environment. So what we've tried to prioritize is that, yes, everyone will have to multi-skill, as long as it's within the comfort and training, and within the reasonable working hours.
Excellent. Abigail. Another question from Christian Angelikos. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to hear your opinions on if there will be a change of preference regarding the type of vacation travelers will choose. For example, all-inclusive, B&B, half-board, etc., in destinations with resorts such as Greece, Spain.
Good question. I'm thinking about it. I think, you know, after a long lockdown that we've all had, we all would love to just go lie on a beach somewhere or sit in a cabin or be in the mountains or something. Like, I know I'm just like waiting to get out of here. So I think in the short term, there will be a huge boost, a bit like what we saw in the summertime over here when the lockdown eased. City hotels was still very quiet, but try to get a room anywhere else outside of the city and it's impossible. It's either very expensive or it's all gone. So I think in the short term there'll be a lot of influx of people just wanting to have a really relaxing vacation. Hopefully they'll also then eventually come back to the cities and trust that they will still be able to have that experience. I think once, for example, attractions reopen here, theaters reopen here, all those amenities that we so rely on for the leisure traveler, as well as then the business traveler to come back when, if offices reopen and the flexibility is built into the way that they can work. I think in the short term, that's what it would look like. And then hopefully 2022, mid 22 onwards, it reverts back to somewhat of what it was in 2019.
Great. Thank you, Abigail. I'm cautious of time. We need to move on. I have two more great questions from Alex and Tracy and more to come, but I would suggest we keep that for later on the breakout room for further discussion when we have more time. But once again, on behalf of all attendees, thank you very much for your informative and insightful sharing, Abigail. So until later on, we'll put our hands together. Right, now pass over to Mike to introduce our second speaker.
Super, thank you, Lorna. Thanks, Abigail, that was really good. I'm delighted to be joined by Sarah De Carvalho, who's the Chief Exec of It's a Penalty. And we're going to be talking a little bit about Sarah's work, looking at what it takes to tackle human trafficking at major sports events. And this is a really big research theme that we've got in the events department, which is a fairly new department. Barbara, you know, maybe that wasn't around kind of when you were here in 1975. And essentially, we're really kind of focused on three particular pillars of events research. The first pillar is around human trafficking and human exploitation in major events, which is a big theme at the moment. The second pillar is looking at the structural barriers in the visitor economy for communities to benefit from events. And the third one is to really look at the ways in which communities can be disrupted in the planning of events. So communities being displaced and gentrified out as a result of hosting events. So they're our kind of main three research themes. And this new research observatory for human rights and major events is endorsed by the International Olympic Committee. So we're working with global policymakers to really try and make a big change at the global level. And this is a massive theme for the event sector. A lot of event organizers and owners of big events are now kind of linking to the concepts of human rights as well as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals in order to look for ways to create fairer outcomes for the delivery of events. So what Sarah's going to really be talking about is a little bit about human trafficking itself as a general problem, but also how that might be intensified as a result of hosting major events. The motivations for Sarah and her team in terms of kind of what inspired Sarah to think about and get involved in this human rights issue. How really widespread this problem is, and Sarah will go on to talk about how it's the second biggest criminal enterprise in the world. I think roughly around £150 billion criminal enterprise, and it's the fastest growing of criminal enterprises as well. So it's a really, really big theme just generally as well. And most of it actually happens closer to home. And there's a really interesting question that we have to ask about events, which is, to what extent does events exacerbate these problems? And to what extent do they shine a light on existing problems of human trafficking that exist on an everyday level, and not necessarily exacerbated by the event itself? So hopefully we can have a little bit of dialogue there. Then Sarah will talk about a little bit about, you know, the campaigns that they're doing. So they've got really, really quite cool ambassadors, Liam Neeson, and hopefully I'll get a video working to show how he's involved, as well as other sporting athletes like Usain Bolt, Gary Lineker, and various other people. And the kind of work that Sarah and the team's doing to really kind of leave a legacy after the event. This is not just a one-hit a wonder. This is leaving structures behind, like hotlines to deal with human trafficking after the event takes place. So there's a longer term kind of tale of legacy, really. Some of the people that they partner with, and we're really proud at the school to be now partnering with It's a Penalty, some of the achievements so far, and really how all of you in various ways can help the cause, and we'll probably end it there, really. So without further ado, I'll introduce you to Sarah. I'll share my screen because I'm managing the presentation, which is an absolute mistake. I'm definitely going to mess up the tech bit, but let me just. And without further ado, I'll introduce you to Sarah.
Thank you so much, Mike, and hello everybody. And I think before I want to introduce myself and just share a little bit about why I do this work, but also some of our main partners during the major sporting events, apart from working with the sports industry, is the travel and tourism industry. I mean, we're only able to have the impact we do because we partner with major airlines, with airports, with hotels, with Airbnb and with Uber, and so on and so forth. So, you know, it's that's why I feel it's so important to be speaking to the alumni obviously the tourism department of the University of Surrey, but also I know from the events, major events. So what does it take to tackle human trafficking at major sporting events? Go to the next slide.
Oh, feel like I've messed up already.
So just give you a bit of background as to why I do what I do. I worked in media initially with Sky and the BBC, and then between contracts, when I heard that there were at that time children on the streets, living on the streets and being murdered, I went to Brazil between contracts and ended up living there and set up another charity called Happy Child International, which I founded in 1993, and that work grew to around 15 projects and 200 staff, and over the years, over the last 20-25 years, we've rescued over 11,500 children, and we also have work in Africa. Could we go to the next slide? Around 2006, I set up, I was back in the UK, and I set up an office specifically to help support the work in Brazil. And during the run-up to the Football World Cup in Brazil, we became aware, my team became aware that a lot of these children, boys and girls, but specifically girls, were being trafficked and exploited on the streets for money. And during one of my trips there, because I would visit the work often, I met this young girl. And I think in life, sometimes things can happen to us that completely changes the course of where we're going. And for me, it was meeting this girl, Rose. She was with a group of young girls outside a motel, selling herself underage. And she told me her story that at the age of 11, she'd been sent to the streets to beg for money. And she soon got caught up with a trafficker who'd been exploiting her for 5 years. And she told me, she just looked at me and she said, you know, my clients come from all over the world. Please, will you do something to help us? I could take you where they're selling girls as young as 9 or 10. And there's no hope for me. But please, will you do something to help us? And on my way back to the UK, I just really felt convicted that having worked for years on the ground, trying to prevent, you know, trying to rescue these victims, I needed to do all I could to prevent it. But my biggest concern was the run up to the Football World Cup. And that's why I started the It's a Penalty campaign. It was a totally separate charity, but specifically aimed at raising awareness of what was happening on the streets, because of course we were aware that if trafficking exists anyway, how much more is it going to increase during a major sporting event where there's an influx of hundreds and thousands of people. And around that time, the Metropolitan Police got in contact with us because they were setting up bogus websites to try and catch potential offenders before they got there. And they wanted information from us. And during some of these meetings in Scotland Yard, they told me about the extraterritorial legislation, which is provisions in law for countries to prosecute their citizens for the abuse if it takes place abroad. And they said, why don't you run a campaign? Is how It's a Penalty was born, and raise awareness about the issue, educate about penalties for offenders, and equip everyone with how signs to look out for and hotlines to dial during the major sporting event. And I thought, who better than some of the biggest names in sport to front this campaign. And the chairman of British Airways at the time said, you make a film and we'll show it on every single British Airways flight. So can we go to the next slide, please?
I'm trying.
Great. So what is the global problem? And I think, you know, it is shocking to think that it is the fastest growing illegal business in the world. And we're talking about human beings here, trapped, you know, almost 25 million are trapped in modern day slavery around the world. And 1 in 3 are children. That's under the age of 18. It generates $150 billion illegal dollars every year. 50% of victims worldwide are trafficked for sexual exploitation. And more victims of human trafficking were reported to the UNODC in 2016 than at any time over the past 13 years. And 65% of human trafficking victims are women and girls. Could we go to the next slide, please? So what is human trafficking? The more we run this campaign, and we work with the Super Bowl, the NFL, we work with the IOC for the Olympics and Paralympics, and we also work with Commonwealth Games Federation. We've also run it during the Hong Kong Rugby Sevens. And the more we travel, the more we realize people saying, what is human trafficking? So I don't know if you've watched the film the movie Taken with Liam Neeson, which tells the story of 2 young girls that are abducted when they're traveling around Europe, and they're trafficked and sold, exploited. And whilst that might be true, in some cases, the vast majority are actually trafficked within their own towns and their own cities by people that they know. So I asked Liam Neeson if he would work with us, and he agreed. And we launched a campaign on educating about what is human trafficking. A number of airlines have been showing this in flight, as have the hotels. And I thought it would be interesting for you to see. It's only 2 minutes long. Thank you.
If you can't hear the sound, just shout.
Hi, I'm Liam Neeson. Human trafficking
Can you hear it?
is the fastest growing illegal global business, generating $150 billion each year. It is the 2nd largest criminal industry in the world. Almost 25 million people are trafficked each year, and 1 in 4 victims are under the age of 18. Most of us would imagine that human trafficking involves someone being kidnapped, moved across borders, and exploited by strangers. This can be the case, but most people are trafficked within their own countries and cities, and coerced into exploitation, often by people they know. During high-profile events and major sporting events, with the influx of hundreds and thousands of people into the hosting cities, exploitation can increase. People are trafficked for forced labor and sexual exploitation, regardless of age, background, or location. Traffickers may threaten their victims with violence or blackmail, take advantage of their vulnerability, or promise an opportunity for a better life in order to control them. Here are some of the signs to look out for. Victims may be easily startled, agitated, or afraid, unsure of where they are, or lack official ID, unable to explain injuries or possessions, may have strange markings, brandings, tattoos, have unexplained hotel use, be accompanied by a suspicious companion. Children can be dressed up to look older than they are. If you're watching this and you are being exploited, or you think you have seen something, then say something. Join our campaign. Together we can end exploitation and human trafficking. Thank you.
Thanks. So I think we've got one more slide. Yes.
Octopus Energy, the U-Switch Supplier of the Year and which recommended provider 3 years in a row.
That's embarrassing.
That's why 94% of our customers are happy customers.
So who are we? So It's a Penalty. We work to end abuse, exploitation, human trafficking. And like I said, since 2014, which is when we first ran this campaign with the run-up to the Football World Cup, and our goal is to disrupt the second largest criminal industry in the world. And we believe that prevention is better than cure. And we do this through running awareness campaigns with the run-up and during major sporting events. And we do that for 2 reasons. Firstly, because we believe that sport provides a platform for social positive change, but also because, and it enables us to get the messages out all over the world through the airlines, through the airports that work with us, through the hotel industry that works with us. And also we provide training as well to hotel staff and management in the host cities, which again is part of the legacy. But we also know through research that there is an increase of activity where there is unfortunately an influx of hundreds and thousands of people. The demand increases. We also are launching a young ambassadors program, and this is including in your university, to raise up student ambassadors across the UK in universities to participate in the fight against human trafficking, because there's nothing more powerful than peer-to-peer education. And finally, we have our Common Protect project, which is legal reform initiative to ensure that children are legally protected in the Commonwealth and beyond. Thank you. So what do our campaigns do? We educate about the issues, the penalties of offenders and signs to look out for. We equip everyone with reporting mechanisms, and we encourage everybody that if they suspect anything to call the hotline in that host city of that major sporting event. And we do this in order to prevent crimes, to reduce demand, and to leave a positive legacy. Thank you. So what are our campaign activities? We make a short film, a 30-second film with some of the biggest names in sport relevant to that sporting event. And if you want to see some of our 30-second films, do go to our website, it's penalty.org, and you can see some of the films at the bottom of the homepage. And we also produce campaign materials, again, with the faces of those athletes and the same messaging and hotlines and signs to look out for. Research shows that if somebody sees the same information 7 times, they'll remember it. So we work with the airlines, we work with American Airlines, Emirates, we work with Cathay Pacific, Southwest Airlines, we're working with the Japan Airlines, and we work with the airports. So the idea is as people fly into the host city, they see the film. Then when they arrive at the airports, we have signage, digital signage with the same messaging. And then we work with rideshare companies like Uber. We help train their drivers to spot it. Some of their stories would make hairs stand up on the back of your neck. Unbelievable. They're absolutely on the front line for this, carrying traffickers, victims, and some of the offenders. And we train them to spot it. And we also provide rear view hang tags that they just put on their mirrors. And a lot of them keep them there long after the major sporting event, and it provides them with a hotline to dial so they know what to do should they carry a victim or a trafficker. We work with some of the biggest hotel chains. We work with Hilton Hotels. We work with the Intercontinental Hotel Group. We work with Radisson Blu. And again, we will help train all their staff and management from their hotels and their subsidiary hotels in that host city, as well as provide the film for them to show in the lobbies, hotel lobbies, and the hotel bedrooms. And then we provide tangible materials as well for guests. And then we'll work obviously with the host committee of that major sporting event, and very often the film, for example, during the Olympics and Paralympics, was shown on the giant screens inside the stadiums and inside the parks. We have a huge, I strongly believe in working in collaboration. So apart from working with the travel and tourism industry and the sports industry, we work with the NGOs on the ground and globally, and in order to have it a big impact through social media and through media. You can see from one of these pictures our film being shown inside the airlines. Thank you. Can we have the next slide? Impact. So each campaign on average reaches 180 million people worldwide. The hotlines that I mentioned, so for example, during the Football World Cup in Brazil, there was 11,252 calls reporting activity. During the Rio Olympics and Paralympics, we were part of their sustainability program. There were just over 5,000 calls. And then during the Super Bowls, we've run it during 4 Super Bowls now. On average, there's an increase of between 100 and 300% of calls. And then together with our partners, we've helped protect almost 17 million victims from exploitation, human trafficking. The Metropolitan Police said that we're one of the best crime prevention campaigns they've ever seen. And in total, its penalty has spread awareness to over 183 million people across social media. Could we have the next slide, please? Thank you. We've just, despite COVID, we've just run this campaign during the Tampa Super Bowl in Florida. And you can see down below here some of our partners, including, the NFL, so the sports industry, as well as the travel and tourism industry. You can see the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association, the Tampa International Airport, the American Hotel and Lodging Association, Uber, the Hilton, Airbnb have just partnered with us now, which is great. And as well as NGOs and the airlines, American Airlines and Southwest Airlines. So the impact was the film is seen by millions on the airlines. And then obviously people are exposed to the signage at the airports. There we had 17 missing children. So we have a huge, like a 300 volunteer outreach with some of our partners with a list of all the missing children in that host city. And of that list in the hotels, when the materials were distributed to the hotels and motels in Tampa, Florida, 17 of those missing children were identified, because some of them were actually in the hotel then and there when we arrived, and we were able to call the police and get them rescued. 700 plus hotel industry managers and staff were trained by its penalty. Airbnb hosts in Tampa educated about the signs of human trafficking and how to report it. And then 2,500 Uber drivers were also trained and displayed the rear view hang tags that I was telling you about with the hotlines in their vehicles. Thank you. So how can you help? I think as an individual to learn the signs of human trafficking, how to make a report, follow and share its penalty on social media, but also encourage the industry you're working in to get involved. So these are some of the signs to look out for. Liam Neeson, I know you would have heard in the video, him share some of the signs to look out for. So victims may be easily startled, agitated or afraid, unsure of where they are, or lack of official ID, unable to explain injuries or possessions, may have strange markings or brandings or tattoos, have unexplained hotel use, are accompanied by suspicious companions, unable to make eye contact or speak for themselves, and children are dressed up to look older than they are. I might add, actually, most of the hotels that we work with today say it is a big threat, and they want to do all they can to try and prevent this from happening in their hotels. It's going to be increasing as a result of COVID, unfortunately. Could we have the next slide, please? So in how to report it, it's a penalty. You go to instapenalty.org. We've developed a map of the world, as you can see here, and wherever you are in the world, if you put your cursor over that part of the world, it will come up with all the different mechanisms by which you can report whether you're a victim or whether you've suspected that you've seen something. Here are our social media handles. Do follow us on It's a Penalty. Do follow It's a Penalty on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And encourage your industry to get involved. We believe, as I said earlier, that collaboration and partnership are essential in order to, if we're going to end this. And I think the involvement of key industries in our work, in It's a Penalty's work, is essential in order to make the impact that we do. And that includes travel, that includes travel companies, sports industry, hospitality industry, and other corporates. Thank you for listening. Let me know if you have any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Sorry about the technical. No,
you were brilliant. You were brilliant.
Give Sarah a round of applause. That was fantastic. Just to say a few things. I saw that we were running slightly out of time, and I wanted to leave a couple of questions for the end. Something that I just wanted to say kind of throughout was that, you know, Sarah's work's obviously exceptionally impactful in terms of social justice, and a lot of lives have been changed as a result. And I think that it's for us as academics, it's clear from an industry perspective it's impactful, but as an academics, what's our responsibility for taking the kind of work that Sarah's doing and thinking about how it transfers to other spaces as well. So a bit of work that we're doing as part of HARM is to try and use the points of educate, equip, and encourage to try and look at how we can solve other rights-based issues in events, anything from Black Lives Matter to sexism, gender issues, and that sort of thing. So I think that what you're doing doesn't just have an impact on the specific human trafficking, but obviously beyond that in terms of human exploitation more generally, which is essential to our work. So thank you for that. That's exceptional. So if anyone's got any questions, they can pop them in the chat, similar to Lorna's session, or you can pop your hand up and I'll try and find you. Anyone's got their hands up? I'm just scrolling across. There's so many people. Yes, Albert, thank you.
Hi, Sarah. Fantastic presentation.
Hi, Albert.
And good to see the fantastic, fabulous work you're doing to ensure that kids are protected and not trafficked. Something which just cropped to my mind, and something which I probably, I don't know if it's an observation or a question. It has to do with how you navigate. I can see that you're working with big names, the big hotel players, the multinationals, and big stars to ensure that, to push forward that agenda or that message limiting such ills. But how are you navigating? Are you working with governments? I'm thinking about Brazil, for example. It's somewhere between the developing and developed countries, and we know how the political economy there functions, how the situation is. And you go to other, you look at Russia itself, Sochi, which was 2013, and it's developed, but then there's how legislation is implemented, how policies are put into practice to combat such ills are often not very direct or actually not respected. Are you working? Is there some collaboration between it's a penalty and governments, and how are they responding to it? When you look at because there are some destinations which are fully dependent, who basically it's an aside to the tourism element or to the events element to it. They can't more or less do without it.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, when we run this campaign during a major sporting event, we can only do so by partnering with the host committee and the sporting governing body. And the host committee will be working with the government. So if you like, the approval for us to run that campaign the government will be involved with that. However, I believe what these campaigns do is they raise awareness and they educate about the issue. When it comes to the legislation, we have something called Common Protect, and that's specifically to see legal reform where it doesn't exist. So where countries don't have sufficient legislation, believe it or not, in this 21st century, a lot of them don't. Both domestically and extraterritorially, we've actually done a comprehensive research, and most of Europe is covered by something called the Lanzarote Convention, and all the European countries now have signed and ratified to that Lanzarote Convention, which covers exactly the CSEA legislation. However, in the Commonwealth, where there's, I think, 53 countries, only 43 countries have sufficient legislation. So we're focusing on the Commonwealth, and we're working with the Commonwealth to bring about reform where it doesn't exist today.
Fantastic. Does anyone else have any further questions?
Do you work with organisations like UEFA? I mean, this year is the Euros.
Yeah, well,
they're going to be all over Europe, I think.
Yes, they actually are looking at developing a human rights policy at the moment, which is great. And so they're at the point now where human trafficking would be involved with that. But because of COVID, we were hoping to run an event, actually, not only with UEFA, but also with the UN Global Compact, of which its county is a member. And the Hilton is going to be hosted at the Hilton, but due to COVID, we just couldn't organize it, unfortunately. But we will be doing something. We'll run a campaign digitally. That's what we'll be doing during UEFA. But we are running it during Tokyo. Right? We were going to be running it last year, but then of course it's been postponed to this year, and we're just waiting to see. We know that the athletes and their team members will be going, but we don't know yet where the spectators are going to be allowed to go. We're going to know the end of this month, but we are running a campaign in Tokyo.
I think they released that international tourists aren't going to go as of, I think two days ago, I think. And in terms of domestic visitation, if there's no international tourists, you know, do you change the model to think about kind of how you might appeal to domestic visitors then? Is that on the radar, Sarah?
What, in this country?
In Tokyo, if it flips, if they don't allow international tourists in.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll still run it. Our partners still want to work with us. When I say our partners, the airlines, you know, we've made a film already. The airlines want to work with us. Hilton wants to work with us. We're speaking to other hotel chains because, you know, if you think about it, the athletes and their team members will be going in. So there will be some movement. So they still, and it's an opportunity to train and to, you know, to train their staff and management. Because human trafficking exists anyway, exploitation and abuse exists anyway. So, you know, despite what that event's going to look like for Tokyo, at the moment we are going to be running it, but obviously it's going to be very different to how it usually is because of the limitations with the pandemic.
So we've got about 2 minutes left. We can squeeze one more question in, as long as it's kind of short. Pop your hand up or just shout out. Yeah. If not, I'll ask one to finish with, just to fill the space.
I was just going to make a comment that here in North Carolina, I know that even some of the small hotels have programs for their employees. You know, when they're checking people in to spot if they think there's a human trafficking issue, and you know, that they then have a protocol for passing it on to management. And another comment I wanted to make is I'm involved with an organization. It was called Dining for Women. They just last week changed their name Together Women Rise. You might like to look at it. And basically that helps women in their home countries. So, you know, they're maybe less likely to be trafficked. It's not against trafficking generally, but it's improving their situation in their home countries. Sort of, you know, a very good program. So I'll put the information in the chat for people.
Thank you. And I've been informed that we've got 2 or 3 minutes we can go over. So Yanni, final question.
I have a public or simple question for you, Sarah. Thank you very much for your presentation. So it's very, very fascinating. And of course, I also joined the our harm center and focusing on looking at research in human rights and human trafficking. And I have a simple question for you, which is that I know that there are lots of issues and corrections and problems related to human trafficking and human rights regarding mega events. However, and we do have lots of non-mega event, but still very popular and playing a significant role in the society, all these other events in a relatively smaller scale. Do you think that these events would also, you know, contribute to perhaps some human rights problems that we're facing in the society, and do you think that there is, you know, the value of looking into those smaller scale events as well? Thank you.
You're talking about events that aren't sport related.
Yeah,
that's correct. Definitely. I mean, I think, you know, wherever there is, if you think about it, wherever there is an influx of people of whatever size, unfortunately, trafficking is going to increase because the demand is going to increase. So most definitely, I would encourage whatever level of event, there needs to be, whoever's running that event needs to have as part of their human rights policy, they need to have things in place to prevent and protect the most vulnerable in that city as a result of the event. And there needs, I think people attending that event need to be educated as well.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So if I am correct, so I would imagine that the framework and the model that as a penalty and you yourself and your team's been implementing in related to the mega sporting events,
Yeah.
might or perhaps might not be 100% adaptable or applicable to smaller scale events. So I hope that in the future we will be able to work together, perhaps to use your help and expertise to help us develop perhaps a tailored framework for perhaps smaller events.
Definitely.
Good point, Yannick. It's worth noting that Sarah and the team are. We've got a grant in with the International Olympic Committee to look at how we might be able to kind of extend some of this work across Olympic cities. But then there's going to be something around FIFA cities as well, and there's potentially something around the Super Bowl, because they're all so different in terms of the way that they're geographically laid out and the time they go on for. So hopefully that will address some of your points, Yannick. Fantastic. Well, if we could just give Sarah a round of applause, just one more time. I will pass over to the marvelous Iz, who's going to talk about the next session. But thank you, Sarah. That was fantastic.
Great. Thank you very much, Sarah, Abigail, and also Mike and Yen and Lorna for leading the discussion. Fascinating topics. Hopefully I think all the attendants will agree with me. That was really a good, really good sessions, both of them. Now, we are going to go into the next bit of the program, which is the networking and Q&A. But before that, I would like to, since we're talking about campaign, I would like to introduce one of the campaigns that the school has been doing or organizing. Now, I'm hoping that you are following us on our social media, on our Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. But we do have a campaign. I'm going to share my screen for a little bit to show you what the campaign is. It's called Wonderful SHTM. And so one of the things that makes me really happy today is, even though we're not, having champagne together, but we could actually, we are together with our alumni coming from all over the world. So, Barbara and Mark from the US, but also lots of alumni in China, I reckon. And so, so hopefully, you will be able to pull out your smartphones or just try to watch the video, and hopefully you will be able to participate in the campaign. So I'm going to share my screen now and play the video. Right. So what you need to do is think about one thing that you think makes SHTM at Surrey wonderful. Think back, to your time when you were here, or throughout your engagement after you graduated from the school. And please do share and tag your friends and tag us too. So you can do this post it on Instagram, on Facebook or on Twitter. And don't forget to follow us also on LinkedIn. And we do our website. I hope you are all familiar with our website. We've been actually trying to revamp the website, and you will see lots of different contents. Oh, Christy also pop in all the social media channels on the chat. So thank you, Christy, for that. So that's that, and what's very much for attending today's webinar. Thank you for our speakers. Thank you for our moderators. Thank you, Savoy and the advancement team to organize this from the alumni team of the university. Thank you very much. It has been great, and so hopefully everyone will come home with something to think about and something to talk about and something to connect with us in the future as well. And so Siobhan is going to send a link where we can connect also with the alumni team. And again, don't forget to reach out to us if there is anything that we can do together. So again, thank you very much. And I hope you have a good rest of the day and see you again in the future. Thanks.